All right, I'm rolling. So, guys, don't forget to talk to the microphones.
All right.
All right, so we're here doing a quick little follow-up with our last talk, where I, convinced everyone that human civilization looks like it's pretty doomed.
I think you convinced yourself that you won.
Well, all right, so let's see. What do you guys think? I mean, what do you guys think now? You guys heard a lot of what I had to say about this. Do you still think it's completely improbable that human civilization will collapse, that humanity might face extinction because of some of the shit we do to the planet and the biosphere?
Wait, what's the time frame?
Let's say at least the next 1,000 years, but I'm saying the next 200. I would put my money on the next 200. There's going to be some, civilization might not be completely collapsed, but it's going to be, most of it will be. I think there might be pockets of civilization, what you could call civilization still, but I think there'll be large swaths of wasteland, is what we might call it.
Yeah, no. In the next 200 years.
Okay.
I'm not saying that a crisis could not happen, but the arguments that you were making that we're not going to figure out how to survive in that time, either because of global warming or population growth or needing water, no, I don't buy that.
Joey doesn't need water.
So here's the thing. I would just ask you to use your imagination. Okay. I know I'm sounding like a hippie probably, but just use your imagination. Imagine all the things that humans are capable of. All the things we still haven't invented yet.
Like
imagine what the future is going to look like.
Like imagine all the people?
Here's the thing. Let me get this out. Before you keep harping on this point.
Imagine all the people with food and water.
Let me get this out. All right. I can imagine that, but, I mean, first off, you're imagining an infinite number of people, but... Right? How many people? How many people can the Earth support?
It depends on how well we can support people.
So you think there's no limits? There's no physical limits to the number of people the Earth can support. There's only a limit to our imagination.
Here's the thing. That's not what I'm arguing. If you look at what the United Nations is saying about population projections, we're looking at maxing out somewhere between like 10 and 12 billion people. And of course the Earth is capable of sustaining that population.
I would agree.
At what consumption rates, though, too? I mean, you got to think about that.
The thing is, we're getting better and better
now with the resources we have if we all lived like we do.
But we're getting better and better at using resources to get more and more out of them, including with crops, with water, with everything else.
Like a PR guy, man. Listen.
No, like even in California, they're taking people's wastewater and poo water and they're turning it into drinking water.
Let me make this point. We have the solutions is the thing. Like global warming, we have the solutions. I mean, population pressures and like ecological death, we have the solutions. We know the solutions. We've had solar power for 100 years. Like we have the solutions. The problem is the politics are so fucked. People are so apathetic and just these things.
We have not had realistic solar power the way that we have it now and the way that it's becoming so cheap.
But have we?
So I feel like that's a bit of a different argument.
It's only cheap compared to oil.
Have we pushed the research and development though to the point that it could have been completed faster if we hadn't relied so much on oil? I think that's kind of his point. I'm not saying that it necessarily would have been viable.
Well, yeah, I agree with that, but that's different than survival.
How long? I mean, you're saying
like,
we have all
are we
this
going to go extinct?
Now.
That's a whole different argument.
When is the U.S. going to be 100% renewable?
100%?
Or over 90, over 80. Come on, anything.
Over 80%.
Over 80%, probably by 2050.
Probably by 2050.
That's about 40 years off. That's a lot.
Yeah,
more
so
damage.
yeah, 35 years.
That's a little optimistic. And so
here's the thing
I don't think that's overly optimistic. I mean, those are the current goals that have been laid out, and I think that they're pretty easy to match when you look at how cheap solar power is getting. So and how cheap it's expected. I mean, everyone's expecting solar power is going to be incredibly cheap to the point where it's like we're just going to be shutting down coal plants and natural gas plants in droves.
Once we can get there, I mean, but look who's going to be our next president though, who's been going around shilling for fracking all over the world. I mean, you're saying this, but then at the same time, your people are like, oh, natural gas, it's a bridge fuel. Go play all these fantasies and saying, oh, we don't need to go to solar right now because we got this bridge fuel. It's like methadone, so we're cool for a while.
Hillary Clinton cared about the environment before it was cool to care about the environment.
Oh my God.
And all she has to do is keep current EPA policies in place, and then use the State Department, use her power as leader of the free world to go out and get other people to agree, other countries like India and China, to lower their carbon emissions. Because otherwise, what we're doing with the EPA, that's how we're going to lower carbon emissions. I mean, that's how you do it.
two things. Number one, Europe, the EU has already said they're not going to meet their emissions cut goals by 2050.
And I don't think the U.S. I don't think Obama is.
They didn't.
Either.
No.
Right
I know what you're talking about,
Obama's
Steve.
not either.
And they didn't say that. A research group in the EU said that they're not going to meet the goals if they're doing the things they're doing now, which means that they're saying, okay, the EU needs to change their policies.
Let's talk about some other news that happened since we had this. Since we had that show. The observatory in somewhere in Hawaii where they get the carbon dioxide levels of the atmosphere. It was the first time for a solid month that the levels have been above 400 parts per million. Boom, making history right there, dudes. The humans haven't really breathed air like this, you know? I mean, like...
But it's not us breathing the air that's the problem.
No, it's not. I know.
It's just that the Earth is getting warmer.
We've never
but
been,
yes.
Humans have never lived on a planet in this atmosphere.
I just want to point out.
It's intensifying for 40 years because of what we've done, not even including positive feedback cycles that might kick in, not even including the future emissions that are going to start tomorrow.
Yeah, no, this is the reason Republicans need to start taking global warming more seriously.
Why don't Democrats take it more seriously? Because
Democrats
why
do
did
take it
Obama
seriously.
spend all his capital on healthcare, and then, at the end, he's like, well, you know... I'll veto Keystone XL pipeline bill. I'll sit on the Keystone XL pipeline. Like, how is that?
But he's bringing down carbon emissions with the EPA. He doesn't need to pass anything through Congress to do that.
And a lot of that also is a lot of the carbon emissions coming down was the recession.
No, what I'm saying, you're asking like, why is he not doing anything about global warming? And I'm asking you beyond
I know he's doing
the
some
EPA.
things. He's doing some things. I'm all behind him, and I'm like, yes, dude, that's great.
Okay, what else should he be doing? He's bringing down carbon dioxide levels with the EPA.
Deny
what else should he be
Keystone
doing?
XL. This first thing, right off the bat. I mean, before he ties his shoes, before he gets out of bed in the morning, he said no to KXL.
And he did. He vetoed it.
We're pumping.
He vetoed
oil.
the bill. He didn't deny the state. It's still sitting in the State Department.
We're pumping oil at a record rate right now. I don't think there's anything to do. I don't think it's really doing that much on the environment. We're pumping oil at a record rate right now for the history of this country. That's not really pro-environment. Second point is liberal environmentalism, at least with the Democratic Party, very often is just simply a way for the candidates to make themselves feel better. They might recycle. Let's all care about clean air and water, but it's not really tangible policy changes. It's just maybe
Michelle Obama is growing vegetables and they put solar panels in the White House. Like, come on now.
I mean, and this is the thing too. Going back to the larger scale point, the macro point here is that, as living centers improve in the third world, which was something that we want to happen, but at the same time, as they improve, China, India, people in Africa, people in the Middle East, everywhere else, they're going to probably continue to have more unsustainable lifestyles, importing food, importing goods.
And this is the paradox of your free trade of. Lifting up these boats.
That's
even
not
though
a paradox
I think free trade.
No,
how not?
The more that China
positive aspects of free trade.
The more that China needs. Okay, here. So let me answer your question. Yeah. The more that China needs food, the more that America grows food and exports it to them. That's jobs for us, and it's foods for them. Same thing with everywhere else. This is the reason free trade is such an awesome thing. You got to get on board, man.
Dude, agriculture, you can't just keep growing and growing. I mean, this is why this Middle East is a desert now.
I feel
Brian brought this up last time.
like
The Middle East, we turned the Middle East into a desert. It used to be the breadbasket of the world.
And who?
Civilization.
Hold on, but who's saying that like the Midwest or places in America where we're growing a lot of agriculture, is anyone saying that that's going to become a desert?
Yeah. Didn't you just see
the Dust Bowl.
Did you just see the NASA report that came out that said that the West and Southwest is pretty much going to become a desert? It's going to dwarf the Dust Bowl.
Hold on, no, that's the.
Didn't that just?
Okay, that is the West and Southwest. I asked about the Midwest, not the Southwest.
Midwest. We still got the Midwest. Don't worry.
The Southwest. Hold on, because the Southwest is already largely a desert anyway. And when we're talking about the West, I'm thinking of like California.
Yeah, well enough to grow. Like a super drought.
But here's the thing.
We're predicting a super drought because of and I mean that's starting right now. I mean shit, like.
I feel like I'm being put in a strange position because on the one hand, I want
these ecological pressures.
I want for the agriculture in the United States to become more sustainable than it currently is, but to say that it's so unsustainable now that we're somehow going to become a desert, or to say that free trade is bad because it allows for places that normally cannot make most of their food to get more food while they're specializing in other things. I don't understand that argument. I feel like this is actually pretty common sense. Free trade is pretty common sense. Japan makes more technology, and other places grow more food.
I feel like you're purposely missing this point.
And then everybody trades.
Joey, I think you're purposely missing this point.
I'm not. No, I think you're purposely missing out on my point. This is common sense.
No, I get that point, but that is a different point. But it's really got nothing to do with the price of butter. But no, the point is, when you have a bunch of poor people you bring up to middle class standards, they want to live like Americans. They want to big consumer lifestyles. They want more meat. They want a car. They want all this stuff that requires a carbon footprint. Even if you have renewable energy, it's still going to have a carbon footprint to make a car. All kinds of
and that's a legitimate issue, but that's not going to cause that's different than something that's going to cause a survival of the human species to become
How is
threatened.
that completely different? I mean,
because they're surviving right now on much lower standards.
Simple.
Yeah, but I mean, in a future biosphere, we're talking about we're talking about their lifestyle now, altering the biosphere in the future, making it harder for people, which we're going to have more of, to survive in the future.
Yes, which is going to create problems.
Simple micro.
Yeah, and I mean,
but not human survival. That's the thing that's still the line that I'm drawing here. Is there's a difference between humans struggling versus human survival.
And here's the funny thing: when I talk to scientists about this, dude, they'll totally take in the possibility of it. Like climate scientists, like even ones who aren't, even ones who are just pretty moderate, even ones who are all go Democrats or whatever, dude, they're like they're. Just, kind of shake their head like, that's a real possibility. Then you talk to an
possibility, but you're arguing it's probable.
Well, a possibility like I'm not out of line by bringing it up type possibility.
Simple microeconomic point there. A small example of what happens with just economics it isn't capitalism, it's just economics in general and where people live. In Yemen, they have a water crisis right now. Every single scientist, governmental body, NGA, and everything else has consistently told the people there, the government there, anybody who listen there, that if they don't change their farming practices and they don't reform their behavior, they're going to run out of water within sometime between 10 and 20 years. Not 100 years, but about 10 or 20 years, within a lifetime. They're going to run out of drinking water, of clean water. And no matter what's been said or researched or threatened, they continue to not change. And the reason why is this: the primary thing that takes up all their water is a crop called cot. I think.
Can I ask you?
QAT. It's QAT. It's cot, I believe. Anyway,
it's fucking awesome.
It's basically it's almost like chewing tobacco. It's a narcotic basically that people chew to stimulate themselves or whatever.
As a Somalian man once told me, when I chew it, I think of all kinds of great ideas.
Yeah.
So you see why they spend all their water on it.
And
that's a perfect metaphor for humanity, though, in my eyes.
Steen, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Do you think this is a short-term problem with the water shortage, or do you think this is long-term, permanent?
No, it's a long-term problem.
How is a water problem short-term? Oh, magically, it rained. We got all this water from the sky. Wow.
Well, no, because I really am saying, open up your imagination. Yemen is pretty close to a big body of water
they can't afford a desalination plant because of the altitude of their cities. So you can't say that.
Well,
about it, but
no, they can't afford it right now. Again, I'm saying open your imagination to the future and how much science is coming along and how much cheaper
infrastructure all that much more energy to get
and artificial intelligence and everything else that we've got going on.
Here's the problem: when human beings, no matter their religion, background, or anything else, are warned that you're going to run out of a basic resource required to live for you, your children, and anybody else in the community, which is clean water. And all that, and their response to that is to drill more underground wells that aren't regulated and to grow more cot, and then continue to engage in these practices agriculturally and culturally that are legitimately putting their futures at risk and risking armed conflict and everything else. And they continue to do it anyway to basically chew a plant.
Let me just make sure. Yemen is in a semi-civil war right now, right?
That's right.
So that might have something to do with it too, right?
You could say the same thing about America. We're just
no, it's very different. It's very different.
Yeah. But all right, let me make.
If you're a human being,
so
I come to you.
Have I convinced you guys yet?
I want to make the best argument that I haven't got to lay out yet. All right, it was probably like 30, 40 years ago. Carl Sagan and Ernst Mayr were he was a biologist. They were having a little debate going about intelligent life in the universe. And Carl Sagan thought we would find it and thought it was out there. And Ernst Mayr thought that the reason that we haven't found any intelligent life, none has found us, was because the civilization inherently destroys itself. Whenever it grows up, it basically pushes beyond its limits, its physical limits of its environment so fast. It grows so fast before it can realize that, I can't grow that fast, and has to rein itself in. And so it explodes and never...
When Agent Smith compared the human race to a virus.
You know, Agent Smith reminds me of someone.
He had some good points. Whatever.
Okay, but let me lay this out then. The Roman Empire, when it existed, a part of what led to its downfall was the sort of like Malthusian argument, right? That it became over planet. That it became over.
That's the thing. There was more planet.
Okay,
to go to.
But here's the thing. They did get overpopulated. People did start starving. We have lots of evidence from skeletons back then, based on the makeup of their skeletons, that they were not well fed. That the longer the Roman Empire lasted, the worse that people's lives became, and the harder that survival became. But that still didn't mean human extinction. That's still the line that I'm drawing here. Is that there's a difference between saying,
well, they didn't have nuclear weapons
for the capacity
how many dozen countries have nuclear weapons?
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, no, but I think, that's a real. I've said this before. Hold on. Nuclear winter, I think, is a serious threat. Nuclear winter, I think, could cause the end of the human race, but not over.
Pakistan,
your argument is that overconsumption is going to cause it.
And we talked about how places like Pakistan, which is a very
I agreed with you. I agreed. I said nuclear winter is a real threat.
And they are having water riots.
Which is different than a nuclear... Well,
which is different, but
I see what you're getting at.
Department of Defense gets it.
I get it, yes.
Fucking Tony doesn't get it, man.
No,
come on, dude.
Pakistan is a country that has a lot of problems.
How is that not a perfect example of the type of thing? I mean, what...
But this is still a different thing between saying that you're going to run out of water, you're going to run out of food, versus you could have nuclear winter.
That's why we give them billions of dollars. They got that shit under control.
Well, no, but I think it's one of the greatest threats out there, but I think it's a totally separate argument than the argument that you're bringing up with overconsumption and global warming.
I think that's the thing, where you want to say these things are totally separate, but they're not. I mean, in the world, when climate, and there's instability because of climate change and water depletion, they're not going to be like, oh, those are nuclear weapons, but that's totally separate, so I'm not going to take those and launch them at the fucking infidels or what, like.
Okay, that is a good argument.
These are on the same planet. These are all pressures that come together.
That is a good argument, but the argument that overconsumption or that because the more people entering the middle class,
then we have the nuclear weapons, and we're going to have them. Like,
but that's not the argument that's not the argument you were making last time, and it's not the argument that you were making until now.
I think it was, but
now you're saying, well, it could have an indirect path to something else, and yes, I agree that is true.
I brought it up though, and I said all that, and you just purposely missed that point because Steen got it. Steen, you were there.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, again, the thing is that the point being is when you continue to warn people about the dangers of things, be it climate change or water, nuclear weapons, whatever it may be, and they continue to ignore it, that's problematic. On the issue of Pakistan, it's actually not something that I worry about too much, because I know for a fact it's been well documented. The U.S. had, and other countries for that matter, have plans in place to immediately send in Navy SEALs or whatever it takes to immediately seize and secure those arsenals of weapons. They know where they are, and they know, the outlines, the facilities, and everything to go in there and get them. Something were to occur.
That just sounds like a mass invasion of Pakistan.
Not an invasion. It would be.
Better than the alternative.
It'd be a very targeted strike, and we'd also have the medical personnel there to physically neuter all the terrorists.
Oh my God!
Yeah, there we go. But the point being is this: all I'm saying is when you've got people, just an example going back to the Yemen thing, where people are warned and they continue to engage in the behavior. I don't know what more you can do. I don't think it's really a government problem. I don't really think it's a social problem or an economic problem entirely. It's just a human nature problem that we overconsume because people look out for themselves, and eventually that's going to catch up with us. Another problem is more and more people are moving to cities. As we can see the trend continuing, people in China and the U.S. and everywhere else in the world are moving into these more compact cities, and slums basically in many cases, in Africa and elsewhere in South America. And that's causing other problems.
It is better than if they would all spread out and go to the suburbs.
Yeah, I was about to say that they consume less electricity.
It's still population,
and it takes up less land and takes less away from the environment. So typically, people moving to the cities is a good thing. It's much less of a strain on resources. They use much less electricity, much less gasoline, much more mass transit.
But still, in the third world, the points you're making, that's basically analogous with moving from poverty into a middle class. right?
Yes.
So, I mean, that's going to have, a correlation with your resource consumption. But, I mean, no matter, you can come up with all these techno fixes, Joey. You want to GMOs, you can come up with a GMO.
It's not just about
techno fixes. You can come up with a GMO that, uses less water, but you're not going to come up with a GMO plant that uses no water. You're still going to need water.
Let me lay out a more broad argument.
But you act like we can just keep expanding and expanding.
You guys know about DARPA, right? The Defense Advanced Research Program.
That's like lasers to change the weather, right?
That is, I believe that is.
No, that was HARP.
Anyway. They launch a lot of really cool projects like the internet, and one of the things that they're doing now is called Big Mechanism, where they use artificial intelligence to look over all the research that's being done, add those things together, make connections that the human brain is just not really capable of, and then say this is what needs to be done next. Artificial intelligence is growing at an extraordinary rate to where that actually could be, I would say, like something that could threaten mankind if you let it get out of control. But as long as we're able to control artificial intelligence, what I'm trying to say here is if you can broaden your imagination and try to imagine what artificial intelligence and robotics and all these innovations that are coming at us in the future.
We're still going to, no matter what the artificial intelligence tells us, no matter what it does,
because that's going to totally change. These things are going to change the paradigm to be able to have what we need to survive and to thrive.
Intelligence
not just here in the United States, but all around the world.
Oh, Scott doesn't need water because we got artificial intelligence.
Humanity is going to be better off in the future than they are today. In 100 years, humanity will be doing much better than they are now.
I am not.
I mean, how much is humanity? I mean, well,
I think you have to look at all of the people who, for example, I don't know, is it 1 billion, 2 billion people around the world that don't even have access to clean drinking water now, and many people are in a fragile economic state because, for example, the United States is so rich, Switzerland is so rich, Japan is so rich, compared to all these impoverished areas. Capitalism, the way we practice capitalism, tends to enrich areas and make other areas, keep them very, very poor.
So, that is total crap.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Now see,
these places were completely poor before capitalism.
Exactly. But it exacerbates.
And then they come in and employ some of the people and give them, relatively moderate wages, and then leave everyone else really poor. And then they can say they've done a great thing. They're helping bring the world out of poverty, and capitalism is great for the world. And they totally ignore all those other people they left poor, and that they, leave carrying the weight. Right. Any ecological bullshit that they.
So as climate change, and you're a big proponent for climate change, Joey. So you understand.
I'm very worried about climate change.
You know that this is true. So you have to also be very concerned for those people that are on the margins.
Why are you worried about climate change?
Society.
I'm worried. I'm worried about the people that are on the margins right now.
Yeah, 100 years.
I think that everything that Scott is describing already exists.
I think if you're going to be intellectually honest, 100 years.
It's a great argument against it.
No, hold on. If you're going to be intellectually honest, I think you have to concede that 100 years from now, you should be very concerned about the poorest people around the world as they struggle with climate change. A lot of them
will already be dead
because I will
it's predicted that by 2050 we're not going to have enough food to feed everyone. So that means more poor people than today are going to be dying when we already have enough food to feed them. So that means we'll probably, by 2100, we'll already have 50 years of poor people dying steadily.
Poor people are already dying of starvation now, and it's already a tragedy now.
Well, in a way that'll,
But
perhaps, a lot more, Joey.
I do think there's a limit. Like, we are becoming a more globalized, connected world. We have friends across the world because we can have friends like on Twitter or, through the internet, whatever. But we have a very limited. People don't want to see other people starve. It's just part of human nature. We don't want to see that. So I do have hope in the sense that we will be more active through the UN, through whatever, delivering food aid. Technology should hopefully improve crop yields, hopefully not at the expense of the environment. And I don't feel as worried as Scott is that there's going to be this imminent collapse because I do have some confidence in the goodness of the human spirit to help each other.
Oh, there's where you're fucked up.
But, no. But I also think
incentives. Look at the incentives, man.
Sure,
that's all you got.
Sure.
That's how humans operate. They don't base off goodwill. It's incentives, man.
I understand. But at the same time, when Pakistan had a flood however long ago, or when Haiti had the earthquake however long ago, people donate. Not as much to Pakistan as they did to Haiti, of course, but people do donate, and these kinds of things are effective, fundraising mechanisms. When we see tragedy, it pulls on our heartstrings and it pulls on our purse strings.
A little bit less now.
Haiti was after.
Maybe so, but
yeah.
But it's true that people do want to give and do want to help in these times of calamity. So I'm not going to be as pessimistic as Scott is.
But that doesn't do anything about the bigger picture, though. I mean, those are all isolated natural
You're
disasters,
completely
sure.
discounting the powers of human goodness and human intelligence when you say that we're going to be worse off in 100 years than we are now, Scott.
I mean, if you see, if the majority of what you see in humans is goodness and intelligence, I think you live in a bubble. I mean, look at our government, dude. I mean, we got Hillary Clinton just wants to go frack, and she's the good party. That's the good candidate. She's all for fracking in the 21st century.
And she's very serious about global warming.
And she's very serious about global warming. So that's good. So she's got it under control. We went. So Bridgemont, did I win last week? Did I convince you?
About the
humanity faces a very real chance of extinction, of collapse of civilization?
I mean, yeah, but I always feel like, what do they say in Jurassic Park? Life found a way.
Life will find a way, but humans won't. Life will find a way. I never said life won't find a way. Life will definitely find a way, but I'm just saying.
You just want human civilization to
I have to say we have.
I want it to be sustainable. I want it to be sustained and not.
Pretty much are ensured to make sure that humanity continues, regardless of what happens.
Ooh, why?
Because continuity of government. At least them. Maybe not the rest of us.
No, because they don't care.
Not the rest of us.
They're looking at the next election cycle. That's the part of the problem, dude. You got politicians looking at the election cycle. You got business people looking at the quarterly profits.
Think about it.
No one's thinking beyond the 4-month period.
Think if you could tell people that you wouldn't exist if we didn't save you. Because everybody else is dead. And the only reason you're alive is because you knew some congressman or senator or was the president's step cousin or something. And
what are they going to do? They're going to go to Mars?
No, they're going to live on the ground in the
or underground. That is more probable. All right. So yeah, and that is one way I see human civilization is sustaining is just going underground.
And wait for shit because eventually everything's going to start growing again. I don't know how long it's going to take, but if we're hit by the largest meteor, there are plans for civilization to continue. Somebody might live in the ground for 500 years, but then somebody's going to come up and rebuild. So
I don't know. That's them all killing each other.
One of my favorite,
a bunch of rich assholes and politicians. They're gonna go backstabbing us. Gonna go.
My favorite short story.
Rothschilds.
My favorite short story of all time is The Waters of Babylon.
Your favorite what?
Short story.
Yeah. All right.
The Waters of Babylon.
And it's about that overall topic. Yeah. And I think it'll show you. I'm not against the notion. It's not that I've never thought about the notion of human extinction because that's what the story deals with.
Because I can foresee it happening. I've been saying that, the plutocracy has invested so much into their survival. They want.
And the story I'm talking about was written in the 30s.
Regardless
but I think it's much more.
Even whether it be through a spaceship or underground, they have all the resources. They're gonna do what they can to make sure that theirs survives. And I mean, maybe you're right. Humanity will be dead, but the human race.
We'll live underground.
Right.
Yeah, the mole people.
Really, guy.
The future.
Live in a coal mine.
We're from the Jetsons to the mole people.